by my partner, political journalist, Ava Santino, and the Times columnist, Matthew Syed. Well, welcome to both of you. Matthew, where's your mind at with this dreadful situation?
Well, I think the key point was made by the Crown Prince of Iran in a brilliant interview earlier this evening, where he said that Iran is behind the Hamas attack. And I think the Iranian regime, these religious fundamentalists, felt that there was a growing accord between Israel and the Sunni world, the Abraham Accords, a looming rapprochement with Saudi Arabia.
And they wanted to wreck it.
Well, the vehemence of the attack, the fact that they videoed it, I felt that it was a piece of psychology to inflame an overreaction from Israel.
Right, and here's the point, Ava, I would make to people who don't really want to say anything that remotely sounds pro-Israeli in all this, is Hamas knew exactly what they were doing. And if Iran were pulling the strings, so did they. When they launched a terror attack of that magnitude, they knew exactly how Israel would respond, and they knew thousands of innocent Palestinians would die in the attacks that were going to come back. How is that good leadership for the people of Gaza?
Well, earlier today, I noted that the BBC have now changed their language around this. So they now say that Israel is at war with Hamas rather than Israel is at war with Gaza.
Right.
I think that is a pretty good representation of the conflict. But what do you mean about me not saying anything pro-Israeli? Do you think that's something I would say?
I'm not talking about you. No. I'm just saying that there's been a trend of people on the pro-Palestinian side that they don't even really want to condemn what happened on October the 7th.
Well, that's
they
the
very quickly want to
qualification
move to criticism of Israel and their revenge attacks. But the moral maze for me is I agree that they should get rid of Hamas. Hamas are openly boasting about attacking them again and again and again. Only last week they said that, right? They make no bones about what they want to do. So Israel has to defend itself, and how else do you do it, frankly, than going in there and killing them?
That's not something I can solve, but I mean, you've got to think about the people who are living in the Gaza Strip, who are living under the regime of Hamas.
But how else do you get rid of Hamas?
Well, look, that's not for me to answer, but I do think it is.
Nobody who says they don't agree with it has an answer.
But I do think there is a huge, argument here for Hamas being, if they are actually sheltering in hospitals and ambulances, as the IDF claim, then the people who are also the Gazan people who are Palestinian people, who are in those hospitals, they are under their rule, right? So
that's the point. I mean, I think that's an interesting
point.
point, Matthew. I mean, there's no doubt I've seen interviews with Palestinians who are just fearful of saying anything against Hamas because Hamas is a terror group that terrorizes its own people. They terrorize innocent Palestinians. They use them as human shields. Right. They deliberately use mosques and hospitals and schools as places for their operations, and they don't really care if innocent Palestinians die.
This is true, but it's also worth taking a step back to understand that Iran is part of a rising autocratic axis, along with China, Russia, and North Korea.
Right.
Iran is sending drones to Putin. It is selling oil to China. China's buying discounted oil from Putin, financing his war machine. North Korea is providing weapons to Putin, getting nuclear secrets in return. One has to take a step back and understand the broader context in which this is unfolding. There is war in Europe.
Yeah.
And I think that if China, and it's not impossible, makes a move on Taiwan, there would be war in Europe, there'd be war in the Middle East, and in the Indo-Pacific.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely vital that the Western leaders understand the deeper dynamics around what's happening, because one of the things that is unquestionably a consequence of Israel's overreaction is it is polarising Western societies. And our ability to act in a unified way to preserve liberty, which is under threat from
What's interesting about this whole
totalitarian
debate, for example, about the march on Saturday, there is a contradiction, you could argue, that a lot of people who shout loudest about free speech want to prohibit Palestinian supporters from marching on that day, which was a day which remembers the battle for freedom, including freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm. Well, hearing everything that Matthew just said there as well, do you not think that perhaps Suella Braverman trying to curtail the potential marches that are going on this weekend, I mean, it almost feels quite puerile.
But when you have people chanting jihad and from the river to the sea, and some of them holding pro-Hamas banners, they are actively promoting a terrorist organisation. That is a crime.
There is no argument that anyone holding a pro-Hamas sign is breaking the law and therefore should be arrested. There is no argument for that. The question is whether people who are genuinely, who are quite upset or outraged by the scale of the response of the IDF would like to go and march and talk about, children that are dying. That is a fair humanitarian response for the British people.
OK, it's an interesting debate. I want to move just quickly to something else. The Captain Tom story. I did an interview with the family of Captain Tom in which they made a number of revelations eventually that they basically pocketed a lot of money. nearly £1 million themselves from the books and so on, which people would have assumed would have gone to the foundation. They've just been told today by local planners that the whole building they built, using really fraudulently, I would argue, Captain Tom Foundation as the background to do it, they've been told to raise it to the ground. What's your take on this?
I don't have strong emotions most of the time. I was disgusted by this. The British people, I think, showed incredible generosity during that period. It was during COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That Captain Dom did that walking. And when you have people who leverage the moral kudos of an individual of that kind, so widely respected and revered, and then trash it, it basically undermines people's sense that they want to give to good causes.
I think so. And there's nothing the British public hate more than feeling like they've been done over.
And I'm obsessed with the brass neck of all of it. I mean,
Yes.
it's absolutely incredible, actually. I think she actually might be an icon.
When they finally confessed to me, after going off camera for half an hour, by the way, to have an argument about it, that all that money, 800,000, had come from the books, which had Captain Tom saying, "This is my chance to raise more money." I mean, it was all there in black and white.
And all those little old ladies who probably gave over their, their last little bit of cash over to a service. They thought.
You know what? In all this, we mustn't lose track of the fact that he did an amazing thing. That guy was the very best of Britain. His family, sadly, I think have let him down.